Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of the Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to check it out today. And guys, today we're going to be talking about how shallow do bass go. It's like what's the shallowest the bass gets, what is the definition of shallow water, and a little bit about some tips and advice on fishing what I consider shallow water, which is less than 3 foot deep. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. Also, guys, a couple of quick things here before we get started. Just want to remind everybody, anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me, just go to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler, and shoot me a private message for details. And also, guys, we do have my fall Fish the Moment lake map breakdowns up on the site here, on the Fish the Moment site. If you guys are interested in getting one, these are great resources to get some good fishing places that you can download to your GPS units with some tips and advice, lake overview, just a really good resource to learn more about a lake you've never seen, or even get some good places on a lake you fish all the time. So I'll have all that information in the description of this video if you guys like to check it out. Okay, bass and shallow water. This is, to me, guys, bass fishing, that's real bass fishing, is when you're fishing around shallow water targets and trying to trick fish into biting around shallow targets. That is the definition of bass fishing. There's something inherently, I don't know, maybe it's just showing my age a little bit, but there's something that's just really special about catching bass next to something. Like when you're throwing a spinnerbait next to a stump, or throwing a spinnerbait next to a dock, or flipping a jig into a bush or something like that. There's an art form to it. There's an art form to fishing shallow water that a lot of people don't give enough credit for. It seems like there's this common, way that people think. They think that anglers that use electronics and fish offshore are just smarter, and the guys that are just, dumb, redneck hillbillies are throwing a spinnerbait up on a laydown tree. But guys, I can assure you, from somebody that has fished deep, mid-depths, and shallow my whole life, there is more of an art form to fishing shallow than there is any other technique, because you have to really understand fish positioning, and you have to understand mood and personality of the bass, especially when those fish are in less than 3 foot of water, what I consider really shallow water. Okay, here's the thing about shallow water and bass. One of the biggest myths about shallow water is that bass will not use shallow water if it's clear. Guys, I don't care if it's as clear as a bathtub, you can still catch bass in 3 foot of water or less. Or if it's muddy, you can catch them in 3 foot of water or less. Any water clarity that you have is irrelevant to bass using that shallow water. Now, the techniques may be different, but guys, bass will use shallow water, in any water clarity condition. And probably temperature is a little bit more critical than water clarity. Most of the time when you're dealing with bass in shallow water, like in 3 foot of water or less, you're dealing with water temperatures over 60 degrees. That's sort of a primary requirement for it. You don't get many bass in really shallow water, like less than 3 foot, unless that water temperature is over 60 degrees, unless the water's got a lot of color to it or something like that, like dirty water. Okay, so here's what you have to remember when bass are in shallow water, different water clarities out there. First of all, the technique is going to dictate by the water clarity, and some of the ways that you can catch bass in real clear water, in real shallow water, is like probably my favorite way is a combination of a floating worm, a wacky rig, some type of soft plastic swim bait. A topwater lure can be really good. Those type of lures that go horizontal through the water column or close to the surface. The only baits that I really like to fish on the bottom in 3 foot of water or less in clear water is a wacky rig. But other than that, if you gave me my top would be like a fluke, floating worm, swim bait, something like that you can keep close to the surface. And, some type of a walking topwater, maybe like a Zara spook, really good under those conditions. Whopper popper can work good too. Now, as you lose your water clarity a little bit, and say you have water clarity that is clean, but it's not clear, so that water visibility is maybe 2 to 4 foot, which is sort of the mid zone there. It opens up to a lot of different scenarios, guys. Then you can catch them on crankbaits, you can catch them on jigs. Same deals with the topwaters. Floating worms still work, flukes still work. Once you get into that type of an area, and with all of it, is the type of cover that you're fishing will dictate a lot of the technique and how you fish, because even though you're in shallow water, sometimes there'll be cover there like shade overhanging trees, flooded bushes, rock, riprap, anything it can be like there. So the technique specific has a lot to do with the type of cover that you're fishing, but nevertheless, they're still going to use that. And in the dirty water out there, bass in really shallow, dirty water, by far my favorite bait's a crankbait. Like a square bill crankbait can work good, a spinner bait can work good, a chatterbait can work good. If there's any type of target in there, like a wood target or grass or lily pads, a jig or a Texas rig can work good. So it just, there's not one rule that fits everything as far as technique and the different type of water clarities you have, because there's other factors to it. You got the factor of how much wind's coming in on it. You got the factor of the, light intensity. Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? Is it rainy? All that's going to have a big impact on it. And then, just the mood and the personality of the fish, and if they're wanting to chase or if they're not wanting to chase. But the main thing I want to stress in this video, guys, is don't hesitate fishing shallow, 3 foot or less, in any water clarity condition out there. I'm not saying it works all the time, but there is a population of bass that live in that shallow water anytime that water temperature is over 60 degrees. It might be the lower end of the lake, it might be the mid part of the lake, it might be the upper end of the lake. It just depends on how long you want to commit to it. For example, guys, I just got back from a tournament today at Lake of the Ozarks, and I was catching fish in about 2 foot of water on a jig. And some other guys were catching fish in about 3 foot of water, and I was catching mine in dirty water visibility about 6 inches. And I heard some other guys catching them like on a buzz bait and a whopper plopper in clear water in 3 foot of water, where the water visibility, you could actually see the bottom in 3 foot of water. Both populations of fish were in 3 foot of water or less, but the technique that dictated it, the clarity, all that, is just a different variable with it. So anyway, guys, hope that makes sense out there. Just don't feel, don't be shy about fishing, dirt, shallow water. Fish live in them all year. Probably I'll give you a little tip there. The shallowest water I have ever caught a bass in my life has probably been about 6 to 8 inches. When some bass were up in the springtime of the year, cruising the shallows, like on a wacky rig. I remember catching one that I don't even know I think part of the fish's back was out of the water at Lake Norman in North Carolina on a wacky rig, on a salt and pepper wacky rig. I saw this fish up there, and it's like, there's no way that's a bass, that's too shallow. And I threw that wacky rig about 3 foot in front of it, and it just darted over there and got it. And like I said, that water couldn't have been that deep. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll check in later.